Hi, my name is Rick Bloodworth. This is the Common Sense Christian Channel, and it's Tuesday, so we're going to be looking at a patriotic theme today. And the patriotic theme that I want to look at is a question. Is it unpatriotic to question our leaders? Whether these be national leaders or leaders on a statewide basis or even a local basis. Is that unpatriotic? We went through something in recent years that absolutely affected the whole world. It was a disease that we still don't know the exact origins of, but we're starting to get a much clearer picture. We do know that the United States of America was involved with experimentation on certain types of coronaviruses, and they were funding a lab in Wuhan, China, to do these experiments. And we do believe that there is less and less question as to whether or not that virus or one of the ones they engineered escaped from that lab that caused an awful lot of problems. But I remember when this disease started, it was very unpatriotic, or considered very unpatriotic, to ask questions. We had a national problem, a worldwide problem. We all just needed to roll up our sleeves and stand side by side in this fight against this terrible disease. And anybody that questioned the official narrative was part of the problem. As a matter of fact, they were killing people by opposing what they were trying to do to stop this terrible disease. It became even unpatriotic to question whether or not the vaccine was quite ready for human consumption. There had never been a vaccine rolled out quite as quickly as this one was, nor had there ever been a vaccine quite like this one, which didn't include part of the disease to allow your body to build up an immunity to it, but it was actually something that affected your very genetics. And then as they started finding all sorts of symptoms, serious symptoms, including death, that stemmed or seemed to be unusually high in the proportion of those who had taken the vaccine for these different types of problems as opposed to those who hadn't. And it became something that was just, you could not ask the question, what's going on with the vaccine? Is it safe? And so we had a situation where not only the disease but the cure for the disease, you couldn't ask questions about it. Because if you did, you were part of the problem. And then when they started shutting down things, shutting down businesses, some of which had been in place for over 100 years, and absolutely ruining those business holders because they couldn't conduct business. And when our government officials started telling us where we could go and where we could not go outside of our houses, and then anytime anybody questioned that, they were considered unpatriotic, part of the problem, part of the ones who were spreading the disease in such a way as to kill people. And we got used to it in America that somehow it was wrong to ask questions, that somehow that was counterproductive. And so, on a large scale, for one of the first times in America, we had a situation where information was bad, as far as any information that was counter to the official line of information. And many people who considered themselves patriots, considered it unpatriotic to raise questions such as these. And now we have situations going on, such as our own State Department flying in illegals to different airports around America. And they won't tell us about it. They admit that they're doing it, but what possible reason could you have as a government for flying in people that were illegal into your country and then just letting them go? And now intelligence agencies from this same government are starting to warn of possible terrorist attacks imminent in America, on the horizon, from bad actors. How did these bad actors get here on American soil? Is it wrong? Is it unpatriotic to ask questions such as this? Is it unpatriotic to ask why our government would aid and abet illegal activities? And that's exactly what they're doing. They're committing illegal activities by bringing in people who are defined as illegal immigrants. And yet very few people question this. We're mad when one state ships the illegal immigrants to another state. We get to infighting from state to state over who's wrong about it, but we forget the fact that the borders have been opened. And it's not just that they've been opened, but there are dangerous people coming across. There are millions of undocumented people who have come into our nation in recent years. And now they're starting to warn us that some of these people may have ill intent towards us and that they may start committing acts of terrorism against us. And we're supposed to take that seriously without any questions as to why do the same people who create this problem all of a sudden tell us that they're the ones who will fix it, and we're just not to question how they're going to fix it? It's not unpatriotic to ask questions. As a matter of fact, it's very reasonable to do so. One of the most concerning things that we have going on right now is our interaction in Ukraine right now with Russia. We have sent all sorts of weaponry over to Ukraine, as well as sending the people who are the technical advisors to use those weapons to be fired into Russia. Even though it hasn't been that many years since America promised, our president promised, that he would never allow American weapons to be fired into Russia. And now not only do we have American weapons over there, but we're sending over the people who know how to operate those weapons, and we are sending them over into another nation, even though we promised that we would not do that. Is it unpatriotic to ask, why are we doing that? We seem to be getting closer and closer to a third world war. Russia is now starting to send weaponry around the world to different places, they say, in order to put them in hands of people who will use them against those who are putting weapons in the hands of the Ukrainians so that they can use them against Russians. And we'll be upset about that, obviously, for that happening. And I don't know anybody that appreciates Russia or appreciates what Russia is doing. But is it wrong for us to question why we're doing what we're doing? In France and in England right now, they're talking about reinstituting a draft. America has actually had rumblings of that themselves. There are NATO plans now that show how we can transfer European and American troops to the Russian border. Why are we doing this right now? Why is it that we seem to be trying to pick a fight? Is it unpatriotic to ask questions like this? I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I have 7 grandkids, 3 children. I don't want my kids drafted into a war such as this. I don't want my grandkids drafted into a war such as this. And let me assure you, I come from a line of people who have done their duty. My dad served in the Korean War. I have ancestors that have served in World War I. I had one ancestor that was in the Revolutionary War. He was actually one of the signers of the U.S. Constitution. But I can assure you that that man who fought in the Revolutionary War and who signed the Constitution was not the type of person who thought it was unpatriotic to ask questions of their leaders. As a matter of fact, they thought it was the definition of patriotism to question what their leaders might be doing and whether or not they had the best interest of those that they said they represented. And so again, I believe it's time for those who consider themselves to be patriots to start asking the questions, and not just asking the questions, but demanding the answers. And if we find those answers are unsatisfactory, then we're going to need a change of leadership. We've got to stop being so devoted to party, and we've got to stop being so devoted to our country that we will defend our country when it's wrong. What was it the saying went? My country, right or wrong? When right to be defended, but when wrong to be set right? We've gotten to the point now where my country, right or wrong, when it's wrong, we'll defend it anyway. That's not patriotism. That's blind devotion. This is what happened in Nazi Germany when the people just followed blindly whatever Adolf Hitler and the other leaders would say they needed to be doing, because that was patriotic. Patriotism is not blindly following your leaders, including when they are acting in an evil fashion. Patriotism is a love for God and country and a love for your family. But you love God first and you're doing the right thing by God first. You love your family and you're doing the right thing by your family second. And you do love your country and you're willing to make sacrifices for your country. But your country has to be right when you're doing that. Otherwise, you're not being a patriot. You're just being a blind follower. And we might find ourselves, if we're not careful, blindly following a path that's going to lead to all sorts of acts of terrorism on our own soil, and maybe even a world war that I don't think anybody wants to be part of. It's not wrong for patriots to ask questions. As a matter of fact, I might suggest to you right now that it is time, if you have not, to start asking questions and start demanding answers. And again, if those answers are not satisfactory, then to do something about that. This is what it means to be a patriot. And I believe it's time for us to become patriots again. That's the thought for today. I hope it gives you something to think about. But I appreciate your listening. I hope you'll tune in next time. But again, until that time, I pray that God will richly bless you as you seek to serve Him as best you can, including in the area of being a proper patriot of the nation in which you live. God bless.